I do. Mics are on.
I haven't seen you in a few days. I gotta introduce myself.
I will call to order the Committee of the Whole meeting at 7:06 p.m. Present are council members Williamson, Heeman, Gilchrist, Limpert, Kelly, and Scarl, the mayor, the law director, and the finance director, and distinguished guests. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to appoint council members to seats on the boards and commissions. Council gets to appoint one member to the Recreation Commission, one member to the Landmarks Commission, one member to the Planning and Design Commission, and two members to the Housing Council. So we'll start out at this time asking, are there any nominations for the Recreation Commission?
Mr. President? You want to
Councilman Kelly.
Councilman Scarl to be on Recreation.
Okay. Are there any other nominations?
Mr.
Okay.
Broussard, I just had a quick question. So has that historically been the chair that serves on the commissions as well? Or is it
The chair of
recreation?
the chair of the council recreation committee? Is that what you're
Yes.
asking? Okay. No, because I have been the council representative on the recreation commission for the past 6 years, and I have not chaired recreation. I did for a portion of that time, but not all of that time,
Okay, thank you.
just as a frame of reference. Okay. So seeing no other nominations, with Councilman Scarl being nominated, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Williamson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, that'll pass 6-0. At this time, are there any nominations for the Landmarks Commission?
I'd like to nominate Councilman Limpert for Landmarks. Second.
Any other nominations?
Just a comment.
Councilman Limpert?
Yeah, I think I was as BZD chair, looking to chair the planning commission since it aligned with the BZD role. Things would come before there.
Okay. We will be coming up on that one after this one, so would you like to see how this one plays out?
Mr. President,
Yeah.
I would like to have council consider Mr. Limpert. In the past, he has been vehement that he wanted landmarks. I needed to have it and had the experience to handle it, and I think he should continue the work, whatever work it is that he started to do on landmarks.
Okay.
Mr. President,
Mr. Limpert?
I think as being on it for 6 years, there's always other committees that try and grow on. I think Mr. Schuman may have set the record on BZD for the amount of times that he was a commission chair. Obviously, at the council's pleasure, I'll serve on what a commission's needed, but I feel strongly that BZD should also be in charge of planning commission because those come before that committee, and the BZD chair needs to be knowledgeable and partake and have some input on those planning commission roles. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Were there any other nominations? I don't think I heard one. Okay. And was there a second for Councilman Limpert for landmarks?
Ms. Williamson.
Okay. All right. So with Councilman Limpert being nominated and receiving a second, all for the Landmarks Commission, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Mr. Limpert, did I hear a aye on behalf of yourself? Did not?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. That motion will carry 6-0. At this time, are there any nominations for the Planning and Design Commission?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Williamson.
I'd like to nominate Councilwoman Heeman.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay. Any other nominations? All right. With Councilwoman Heeman being nominated and receiving...
Hold on, you got-
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Kelly?
I'd like to nominate Councilman Limpert.
Okay. All right, so is there a second? All right, without a second, we will move on to Councilwoman Heeman being nominated and receiving a second for Planning and Design Commission. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. That motion will carry 6-0. Are there 2 nominations to the Housing Council?
Yeah. I'd like to nominate Councilwoman Williamson for Fair Housing.
Okay. And is there a second? And before anybody responds, I do believe that although he's not present, Councilman Glassburn indicated a willingness to also serve in that capacity. So,
I'll nominate Councilman Glassburn.
okay.
And
All right,
I
so if I'm hearing this
second that.
correctly, Councilwoman Heeman is nominating Councilwoman Williamson, and Councilwoman Williamson is nominating Councilman Glassburn.
Yes.
Do I have
And I'll
that?
second
Okay.
Mr. Glassburn.
All right, and Councilwoman Heeman, are you going to second Councilwoman?
I did, yes, sir.
You did, okay, all right. Any other nominations? Okay. Seeing none, with Councilwoman Heeman and Councilman Glassburn being nominated and receiving seconds, all those to the Housing Council, all those in
No,
favor
it's-
signify
it's
by saying aye.
Williamson. Williamson.
Did I say it wrong? Okay, I apologize. It's with Councilwoman Heeman and Councilman
No.
Glassburn. Williamson, all right. Third time's a charm. Thank God we only do this
I
once every 4
know we
years.
switched chairs on you, but...
All right. For the last time, Councilwoman Williamson and Councilman Glassburn being nominated and receiving seconds. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Yay. Any opposed? All right, seeing none, hearing none, those motions will carry 6-0. With there being no other items to discuss on the agenda, I will close the Committee of the Whole meeting at 7:14 PM.
Mics are on.
I need a minute. I'd like to start the Finance Committee meeting on 18th January 2022 at 7:15 p.m. Present are committee members Limpert and Williamson, council members Jones, Broussard, Heeman, Gosh. Old template. Apologize, everybody. It's a new year. Let's try that again. Committee members Limpert and Williamson, and council members Scarl, Kelly, Heeman, and Gilchrist. On the agenda is resolution. Resolution 2022-7 IT box file contract. Ms. Copper or the mayor, who would like to start off?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We also have with us today to answer any of the questions that the finance director and I can't answer, Eric Lundberg, our network architect. And just to give a brief description of what this legislation is, and then I will let Eric give you the main details. This was something that council had talked about for many years, and it's essentially moving our information into the cloud to secure it so that our system here in the city is not experiencing as many ransomware attacks or malware attacks. As Eric has put it to me, it is sandboxing our information, so essentially keeping a lot of the bad stuff out of it. And Mr. Lundberg can continue with the more accurate description of what this will do for our city.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
Mr. Lundberg, just really quick, let me just make sure everyone, it's authorizing the mayor to purchase the services at a cost of $360,000 as an emergency exception to public bidding, and further authorizing the mayor to execute all documents necessary to effectuate such purchase and declaring emergency. Go ahead, Mr. Lundberg.
That is
Thank you.
correct. Yeah, and basically what this will allow us to do, like Mayor Jones specified, is to really eliminate our attack footprint by moving file level data and email level data off of our main network. I know we talked about this a few different times, and it's something that we talked about dating back to a couple years ago. We were asking for an emergency clause on this. We did actually go through our own process of vetting out different vendors, technology vendors. Basically, the two main vendors, Ignite and Box, are the key enterprise level players in this space. There are multiple other players that reside in this space, like G Drive and OneDrive and a couple of the others. However, those are more consumer based, and they don't offer the plethora of options that Box offers. Aside from being able to move our file level data and email level data off, it allows us for a centralized platform where we can store any and all information, go through an automated process, which will eliminate a lot of manual processes that are still being done today. It will offer an integrated e-signature key feature that we will most certainly utilize. We're still using, a typical old process of, here's this, we need you to sign this, take it on to the next person, here you go. So we'll be able to track a lot of that. We will also have the ability to access our data wherever we are without the need for a VPN. This will be both file level data as well as email level data. There are many other benefits to this platform, but the key differentiators for us will be to, like I said, eliminate our attack footprint and kind of put our file level data away from ransomware threats. No system is immune to attacks, but this will significantly reduce our potential for automated attacks.
Thank you, Mr. Lundberg. First question I would have is, can you identify what the driving factors were that made you select this vendor over some of the other ones that you were aware of in the market?
One of the biggest ones was the unlimited storage availability. We know that the amount of data that we possess from a digital perspective is ever increasing. And while we did, narrow our search down to a couple other vendors, they were the only ones that offered a limited storage. So that was a huge piece to what we want to do. Another key piece is the ability to offload our email level data through a solution called MX Hero. And what this will allow us to do is actually take our attachments, put those into the cloud, still be able to receive our attachments, and actually open up more of our email filtering to potentially limit the amount of files that are being blocked today. But that attack surface will be completely gone because our file level data and our email level data will be residing in the cloud. So while they will have access to the attachments as you see it today will not, appear on the local network.
Thank you, Mr. Lundberg. Just a second question. Would you consider this to be, once we purchase and implement a sticky product, or would you expect us to be able to fairly easily switch to another solution in the future?
We still own all of our data. So if it's something that we find does not work for our needs, or we come across something better, after a 3-year term, it is certainly something that we can take and move forward. They don't, hold our data hostage per se. Again, it's all still owned through the city, so.
Okay. Any questions from Ms. Williamson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had one question, and that was, if an employee opens up an infected file, how is that going to work now? So if they are sent an email and they click on it and they're not supposed to, how does that whole thing work now with the cloud? I think you may have explained it and I didn't quite follow you.
There will be a sandboxed environment, so it's still potential that file can actually open and detonate, what type of threat there is, but it'll be away from our network, so we actually have the ability through Box ransomware protection to roll back from a previous instance as if it never happened. And again, that file will be able to be viewed, but it won't be viewed and stored within our local network.
And it won't destroy anything in the cloud?
That's correct. It won't destroy anything in the cloud.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Williamson, any other questions?
I'm good, thank
Okay,
you.
good. Questions from council. Ms. Heeman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So then, everything is backed up to the cloud on a 24-hour cycle or 12-hour cycle? Like, how is your backup? I mean, is it, sometimes I've worked in environments where backup was automatic, right? And it was actually challenging if I wanted to save my own file because it was doing it for me. And then others were, a 24-hour cycle, that sort of thing. So what's our backup time frame?
The backup process for the files that live and breathe on Box is an ongoing process. The only thing that will change will be document revisions. And there are an unlimited number of document revisions. So, at the very least, you may potentially lose one revision or be able to be restored from a previous backup. Does that answer that question?
Yes, I have a follow-up, if I may.
Go ahead, Ms. Heeman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So have we considered document control software? What I mean by that is, it holds your versions, right? So if you make a document, law firms use it pretty often. If you make a document, it's version 1. Somebody edits it, it's automatically version 2, and you would have to select, and you can go up to like 30 versions, right? And if you wanted to select version 3, again, you had to go and find it. And then giving the ability to compare one to the other of all the versions if you wanted to do that. Would that help us in any way with this, trying to find the document version, or maybe you lost your last version? And do we know, or could you find out how expensive that would be for our environment, since I don't know that word processing necessarily is, what we do, but it does work the same for Excel. I just don't know with the other types of platforms that we have, being a municipality, that it would be advantageous or not.
Sure, great
Your
question.
thoughts on all that?
Well, to make it pretty easy, revisioning and versioning is actually integrated into Box.
Okay.
So it's not something that we have to pay extra for, it's part of the overall solution. So as soon as somebody creates a document and then maybe they want to collaborate with another person or introduce changes or updates.
Sure.
The nice thing about that is, what we do now, we actually have to send that off to the person via email attachment, or maybe give them access specifically to a file letter drive that
Right.
holds that information. Now we'll be able to actually collaborate directly through Box, the app, or directly through the desktop, offer them to be able to edit and update the document, automatically change to the latest and greatest revision or version, and we'll just continue on through the process. So it is something that is automatically integrated into the solution.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Broussard?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Eric, will this system allow us to access and work with attachments that were filtered out of our system?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. All attachments now will be made available, with the exception potentially with zip files. We still have some issues to work around through some of those, but all attachments will be made available.
Thank you.
And Ms. Seaman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if you could explain the financing of all of this, meaning that $365,000 does what? That's our sign-up fee, that's our purchase, it's the maintenance fee then is additional, there's an annual fee. What are all of those costs?
Our annual fee will be $105,000, spread out, actually recurring every year for the next 3 years. And there is a one-time Box consultation fee of $45,000. And that is what we recommend bringing in from an outside resource. It's their own consultant service field. They do not outsource any of this stuff. They are Box members. So we will help them, we will bring them in and help us go through the process of kind of recategorizing, re-strategizing our file level data, and then put forth some recommendations as well as training and stuff on what Box does.
Mr. Scarrow?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a question. After the 3-year contract is up and we pay $315,000, not counting the 45, is there any penalty if we choose to leave and go with another firm?
No, sir. No, there is not.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions from council or committee?
Thank you. Just one more, thank you. So the 105 is the annual, the 45 is, this, I'll call it a professional fee just for ease. And so then the 65, is it like for licenses and other 365, that's for licenses and things? Does each person need their own license to do this? Or that's just a blanket cost for the number of employees that we have? How many people does it service?
Our bundle is inclusive to 250 employees.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Kopfer, you had a comment?
I did. I just wanted to back up because it wasn't like Eric went and decided by himself all these things. He narrowed it down to several vendors, and then we had a committee of people, of employees, division heads and directors that sat through demos, and we played with it, and we had it in our own environment, and we all agreed that this is the solution that's going to be best for us. The unlimited was really key because all the other ones were hedging, and if we start considering that we're going to be bringing on police cameras and things like that, body cams, and all those things, we would have been over that amount very quickly. So it's very effective to do that. And the 45,000 was critical because we really are going to, you're reimagining the whole thing, and you're trying to go through and not bring a bunch of junk with you. So we're going to go in a methodical way, department by department, to try and come up with a step-by-step process. And we just felt that we needed their expertise in it.
Thank you. Great point.
Just kind of a follow on that, I think, like you said, it's an unlimited storage, and that's great. I think we want to make sure that there's a retention and review process to try and manage that, even if it is unlimited. If those costs in the future after the 3 years tend to go exceptionally higher, we should have an understanding of how do we trim that down, or how can we manage it to know what that right size of file storage might be if for some reason a limited storage option with this vendor starts to become, cost prohibitive.
For sure. Yeah, and there is revision history, like I mentioned. There also is governance. So we do have the ability to, as we go through the process of implementing this migration, we have the ability to put forth whatever retention policies and guidelines that we need by department. So it's not an all-inclusive, here's what, this retention policy is going to look like. It's all going to be dictated by each department and/or each type of file that's going to be stored and categorized.
Mr. Chairman, our records retention policy by each department will be, and then it automatically cycles out. So it tries to keep it in balance, which is great, because I can tell you, some of us, myself maybe, are not as good as cycling out those emails and things that other people are, and documents and draft versions and all that. So it's going to be great.
Yeah, and I think we're all just aware how when you start enabling version history, how all of a sudden those can grow and what that looks like. That may not, show up as part of the recycle process because it's under proper timelines.
Right.
So, I mean, that's fine. I think just in the future, as we go through future year budgets, like getting a handle on how we're doing on that would be good to understand.
Sure. And we do have a lot of data silos today, in a lot of different locations, different application silos, different data silos, a lot of different servers. So this will allow us to bring everything under one umbrella and maintain and control all of it.
Great. Any other questions from council or committee? And administration, any questions or comments? At this time, I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2022-7. Ask for a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 2-0. And I'll conclude the Finance Committee at 8:33 p.m. Thank you. 7:33, thank you. 7:33.
We are opening the Public Safety Committee meeting this evening at 7:40 PM. This meeting has been canceled for tonight and will be rescheduled to January 25th, 2022. Thank you.
Caucus meeting of January 18th, 2022 will now come to order at 7:45 PM. Present are council members Williamson, Heeman, Gilchrist, Limpert, Kelly, and Scarl. Mayor Daley Jones, Law Director Garreau, Finance Director Coffer, and guests. There is one item on the agenda to be considered for suspension this evening. It is to 2022-12, which is codifying the ward map that council approved on December 28th. The clerk did notice after sending the map out to council that there was a clerical error on the approved date. The exhibit was replaced today to reflect the approval date of December 28 versus December 29. However, nothing else on the map has changed. And the purpose of suspension is so while the map has been approved, it can be properly codified. Are there any questions from council on this? Okay. Are there any objections to suspension? Okay. Seeing none. Moving on to assigning legislation. Ordinance 2022-8 will be assigned to the Finance Committee. Resolutions 2022-9, 10, and 11 will be assigned to Streets and Transportation. And so moving on to scheduling committee meetings for next Tuesday, January 25th. Councilwoman Williamson, would you like to schedule a Public Safety Committee meeting?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to schedule a Public Safety Committee meeting at 6:55 PM for liquor permits.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How long do you envision that going?
5 minutes
Yeah, or less,
or less.
traditionally speaking.
Yes.
Councilman Limpert, would you like to schedule the finance meeting on behalf of Councilman Glassburn?
Yes, I would. We'll discuss 2022-8. Would ask that the finance director be present, and then, sorry, Ms. Williams, what time did you say you think you'll be done by?
7. You're going to go at 7.
7. I'll schedule mine for 7. And Ms. Coffer, what about, who knows, 20?
5 minutes.
5, okay. So we'll go from 7 to 7:10.
Thank you. Councilman Kelly, would you like to schedule the Streets and Transportation meeting?
Yes, Mr. President, thank you. I'd like to schedule Streets and Transportation for 2022-9, -10, and -11 for 7:10 PM.
Thank you. And before moving on, Mayor Daley Jones, it's my understanding you'd like to request an intergovernmental relations meeting and a special council meeting to consider one or more directors?
I would respectfully ask council to schedule those for next Tuesday, please.
All right, thank you. So going back to Councilman Kelly, how long do you think you'll need for your meeting?
So these are pretty standard, I believe, that we do every year. I don't know, what do you think? 15 minutes, 10 minutes? You had, this was your committee last time, Mr. Limper. How long do you think it took?
It's probably, given the first one, maybe 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes.
For all three?
For all 3, 10 minutes, yeah.
10 minutes, please.
Awesome, thank you. We had a lot of input on time on that one. I was getting hand signals from the mayor and the finance director.
I was going to say 7.
Do we have the same hand?
First one's always a little longer.
Okay.
First one's always a little longer, yeah.
All right, so Councilwoman Gilchrist, then, would you like to schedule the intergovernmental relations meeting?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to schedule the Intergovernmental Relations Committee for Tuesday, January 26th at 7:40. And I'd like the mayor and her nominees to attend. I expect the meeting to last about 30 minutes.
Okay, great. All right, so with that said, I'll go ahead and schedule a special council meeting for Tuesday, January 25th, 2022. Am I hearing 7:50 as the start time?
7:40.
So your intergov meeting is going to go from 7:20 to 7:50, right? Okay, all right. All right, so then we'll schedule the special council meeting at 7:50 for the purpose of considering director appointments. Council, before we close, is there anything else for the good of the order? Anything from the administration? All right. Seeing nothing else, the caucus meeting of January 18th, 2022 is adjourned at 7:50 PM. council meeting of January 18th, 2022 will now please come to order. The audience is invited to join council in the reciting of the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Broussard.
Present.
Ms. Gilchrist.
Here.
Mr. Glassburn. Ms. Heeman.
Here.
Mr. Kelly.
Here.
Mr. Limpert.
Present.
Mr. Scarl.
Present.
Ms. Williamson.
Here.
The following legislation is considered for suspension of the rules this evening. On first reading, ordinance 2022-12. And moving into reports, Mayor Daley Jones, do you have a report this evening?
Thank you, Mr. President. I do. This past Sunday and Monday, North Olmsted was hit with the Saskatchewan Screamer winter storm. It's true, that's what they named the storm. Our service department and fleet employees worked through the evening of the 16th until 9:30 p.m. on the 17th. We had 17 trucks out and one fleet mechanic treating the mains, secondaries, and interiors. Each service department and fleet employee worked 16 hours before leaving. The third shift then started at 11 p.m. and continued working on the main, secondaries, school zone streets, and the city-owned parking lots. They removed snow from the sidewalks around City Hall, Old Town Hall, Food Pantry, and the police department. Today's day shift had 11 snow removal vehicles out, plowing back interiors to the curbs, plowing out cul-de-sacs, and clearing sidewalks on our Bombardier route. The residential concerns about blocked driveway aprons were also addressed today. And at 3 p.m., our second shift continued to work on the Bombardier route and removing the snow from our bridges and the streets crossing over I-480. Because of this storm, garbage collection will be on a one-day delay this week, actually for most of our surrounding communities, including our community, North Olmsted. So please note that garbage collection this week will be on Friday. In addition to the attention that I wanted to bring council for the great work that our service and fleet department employees did to address this winter storm, I also wanted to tell council about 2 police department employees who went above and beyond earlier this month. Patrol officers Wyatt and Walcott arrived at a home and performed early CPR on a victim before our fire department EMS crew arrived on the scene and took over. These officers played a significant part in the victim's outcome, and I want to recognize them publicly before council. We're grateful for all of the great employees that the city of North Olmsted has. I am finalizing the interviews with candidates for the remaining director positions, and will have those candidates to you, City Council, at the special council meeting that will be called next Tuesday. I thank you, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mayor. And just a comment, if you don't mind, regarding the service department's performance with the snow event. You're absolutely right. When I was a ward council member, a snow event like this typically would have generated a dozen phone calls, emails, or text messages that I would have responded to. And this time around, I had just one single mild concern from a resident. So great job by the service department. Director of Law Garreau, do you have a report this evening?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I do have a brief comment. First, I agree that the work that was being done by the service department was excellent. I've seen a couple years ago, I remember we bought that snow removing device that kind of tears up and down Lorraine Road. That thing's all over the place. It was flooded on the parking lot. It's probably somebody was taking a break to send it back out, clearing the sidewalks along Lorraine Road. I remember thinking when we bought that, wow, that's an expensive piece of equipment. Now, after you see the work that it's doing, it's every penny was well spent. Yesterday, and I know from our negotiations with the labor unions and CBA, collective bargaining agreements, that we had celebrated Martin Luther King Day, and I recall in the past that was not an occasion where the city had been closed and was not commemorated as part of our holiday schedule. I think that's an important thing that we did. It was something that was negotiated during the last labor contract session, negotiation session, and I think it's the right thing to do, and I'm glad it's now officially in our holiday rotation to commemorate Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So a couple things. First, there is, a while back we had done, there was a series of homes that we had appropriated funds to do tear downs. And the way these work is we get these tear down cases where the houses are so dilapidated, come in, get the order, take them down, and then you file your, with the tax duplicate, you file your bill, so you can get your money back when the house sells, or they pay the tax duplicate tax bill, which they sometimes don't do. I just want to let you know there's Cuyahoga County versus Richard Cabot is a tax foreclosure matter. This is the house that we took down a couple years ago on Woodside and Walter. There was actually, the roof was collapsing and took it down. We are in line to file an answer to that complaint and hopefully receive back the funds that we had utilized to eliminate that blighted condition. It's how it works. Sometimes it takes time, but you do go to the front of the line when those houses go through foreclosure, so we'd be in a position to be able to get our funds back, hopefully. So that should be, we should be in good order there. Additionally, in a couple cases that I've kind of repeatedly mentioned, one case that I repeatedly mentioned in the past is the North Olmsted versus Amanda Ramos case. As you know, there's at least 2 cases going on. That's the dog bite case. We have a trial date set for the 10th of February at 10 in the morning. Those are the minor misdemeanor cases that'll be set for trial, with the judge. The jury trial has not been set. That's the first-degree misdemeanor on the non-compliance. We do not yet have that date set. So there's trial dates coming up on the minor misdemeanors. No trial date yet on the more significant offense as of this time. And I know with COVID, with the increase in COVID, I know the jury trials have been kind of slowed down a little bit, but this is at least scheduled to proceed on those days. Hopefully it will proceed. Additionally, on the civil injunction action, we have prepared and filed a motion to show cause asking that the defendant be held in contempt for violating the court's order. We are obtaining service. The hearing on that was delayed. Service apparently was not perfected, required to give them a proper copy of the order. We've sent out multiple requests for service, which we should have soon, and we would expect that there'll be a hearing date on the motion to show cause potentially next month. So that would be our hope, that we would receive the hearing date on the 8th of February. Additionally, there's a couple other lawsuits I'll be filing. That we do get these from time to time for property loss, where the insurance companies were not able to successfully negotiate with them. You might be surprised at how expensive it is when somebody goes off the road and takes out one of those traffic control signals for the traffic lights. You're talking tens of thousands of dollars. Sometimes they don't have insurance, or sometimes the insurance company just doesn't want to pay it. So I'm going to be proceeding with a couple of those lawsuits here in the next few days to try to get our money back, so we can pay the vendors for repairing the poles that were destroyed and the boxes that were destroyed. So that's what's going on in the law department, and thank you for the opportunity. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Director. Director of Finance Copper, do you have a report this evening?
I actually have a brief report.
Keep it brief.
We thank you in advance.
I just wanted to mention to everyone that the Cuyahoga County has moved their tax date back from January 27th, when property tax bills are due, to February 10th, the first half. So pushing it back that couple weeks is probably going to push our collection then back probably from March to April, later in April. So the settlement will be a little later. So other than cash flow, I mean, it's still going to be the same amount, just a matter of timing. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Director. Moving into council committee reports, the Committee of the Whole met this evening, January 18, 2022 at 7:06 p.m. Present were council members Williamson, Heeman, Gilchrist, Limpert, Kelly, and Scarl. The mayor, law director, finance director, and guests. The purpose of the meeting was to appoint council members to seats on the boards and commissions. Council appoints 1 member to the Recreation Commission, 1 member to the Landmarks Commission, 1 member to the Planning and Design Commission, and 2 members to the Housing Council. During the meeting, council recommended the following appointments. Councilwoman Williamson and Councilman Glassburn to the Housing Council by a vote of 6-0. Councilman Limpert to the Landmarks Commission by a vote of 6-0. Councilwoman Heeman to the Planning and Design Commission by a vote of 6-0. And finally, Councilman Scarl to the Recreation Commission by a vote of 6-0. At this time, I'll ask if there is a motion to approve the above recommendations.
So moved.
Second.
Motion to approve Williamson and Glassburn to the Housing Council, Limpert to the Landmarks Commission, Heeman to the Planning and Design Commission, and Scarl to the Recreation Commission was made by, I believe, Councilwoman Williamson and seconded by Councilwoman Heeman. Roll call, please.
Ms. Williamson.
Yes.
Ms. Heeman.
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist.
Yes.
Mr. Limpert.
Yes.
Mr. Scarl.
Yes.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
The motion is approved by a vote of 6-0. The meeting concluded at 7:14 PM, and that will conclude my report. Councilwoman Williamson, Chairwoman of the Public Safety, Health, and Welfare Committee, do you have a report this evening?
I do not, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Limpert, Chairman of the Building, Zoning, and Development Committee, do you have a report this evening?
No report this evening, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilwoman Heeman, Chairwoman of the Recreation, Public Parks, and Buildings Committee, do you have a report this evening?
No report, although if I may have a moment, please.
Sure.
I'd like to informally report that I did tour today the recreation building, the facility, and, you know, in particular, like the ice rink and like probably every locker room, everything, even the roof, which I had not been on before. So I had a very nice tour, collected, I think, some interesting ideas for myself to be able to, I think, share with all the rest of you as we start to look at some of the plans that we might have for that. And thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Limpert, Vice Chairman of the Finance Committee, do you have a report this evening?
I do have a report this evening, Mr. President. Thank you. The Finance Committee met on 18 January 2022 at 7:15 PM. Present were committee members Limpert and Williamson, council members Scarl, Heeman, Kelly, Gilchrist, and Broussard, the Finance Director, and the Mayor. On the agenda was Resolution 2022-7, which is a resolution authorizing the mayor to purchase computer file storage services from Box.com at a cost of $360,000 as an emergency exception to public bidding, and further authorize the mayor to execute all documents necessary to effectuate the purchase and declare an emergency. Mr. Lundberg from our information technology had outlined the demonstrations had been done on several solutions before deciding on the recommendation of Box.com. He highlighted the unlimited storage as a driver in the decision, and also noted that it met versioning and recovery requirements. He noted that after the 3-year contract, there are not any cancellation or termination fees, would not expect to be a lengthy transition if requirements change or service experience is not as desired. And finally, Mr. Lundberg also noted that it comes equipped with a governance package, so we have to observe, maintain management of the storage capacity, which was recommended by some of the council members, as even though the contract's unlimited currently, that could become cost prohibitive in the future, and the motion passed by a vote of 2-0. Mr. President, this concludes my report. If I could just have a moment of personal privilege.
Certainly.
Just revisiting on the snow incident, I just had an observation. I really wanted to congratulate some of the residents on some of the social media platforms. Some former plow operators and service members were very helpful in answering residents' questions and kind of clarifying some of the questions on where salt was placed at intersections, non-regular roads, and some of the challenges with doing the mains versus the secondaries, and it really was a good discourse, and I think that's great to see, and I think it's a value that we could tap into in the future with serious events to be able to help communicate to the public. So thank you.
Thank you.
And thank them.
Councilman Kelly, Chairman of the Streets and Transportation Committee, do you have a report this evening?
No report, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Scarl, Chairman of the Environmental Control Committee, do you have a report this evening?
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gilchrist, Chairwoman of the Intergovernmental Relations Committee, do you have a report this evening?
I have no report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Are there any letters or communications to come before council at this time?
No, Mr. President.
Thank you. So thank you for attending tonight's council meeting. If there is anyone in the audience who would like to address council, please come to the podium, state your name and complete address for the council clerk. If you live in a city other than North Olmsted, please state the name of that city and proceed with your comments. You will have up to 5 minutes. All right, seeing no comments from the audience, we will now move into legislation.
Legislation on third reading. Ordinance 2021-92, introduced by Council President Jones. An ordinance replacing existing Chapter 927 Erosion and Sediment Control of the Street, Utilities, and Public Services Code with new Chapter 927 Erosion and Sediment Control to meet new and updated requirements of the Ohio EPA associated with the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, NPDES, permit program requirements.
No, Councilman Scarl.
Mr. President, I move for adoption of ordinance 2021-92 and ask for a second.
Second.
I second.
Motion to adopt ordinance 2021-92 made by Councilman Scarl and I believe seconded by Councilman Kelly. Roll call, please.
Mr. Scarl?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Limpert?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Ordinance 2021-92 is adopted by a vote of 6-0.
Ordinance 2021-93, introduced by Council President Jones. An ordinance replacing existing Chapter 928 Comprehensive Stormwater Management of the Streets, Utilities, and Public Services Code with new Chapter 928 Comprehensive Stormwater Management to meet new and updated requirements of the Ohio EPA associated with National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, NPDES, permit program requirements.
Councilman Scarl.
Mr. President, I move for adoption of ordinance 2021-93 and ask for a second.
I second.
Motion to adopt ordinance 2021-93 made by Councilman Scarl and seconded by Councilwoman Gilchrist. Roll call, please.
Mr. Scarl?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Limpert?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ordinance 2021-93 is adopted by a vote of 6-0.
Legislation on second reading. Resolution 2022-7, introduced by Mayor Jones. A resolution authorizing the mayor to purchase computer file storage services from Box.com at a cost of $360,000 as an emergency exception to public bidding, and further authorizing the mayor to execute all documents necessary to effectuate such purchase and declaring an emergency. Legislation on first reading. Ordinance 2022-8. An ordinance to make appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures for the city of North Olmsted for the year ending December 31st, 2022, and declaring an emergency.
I introduce and place on first reading.
Resolution 2022-9. A resolution authorizing the city engineer to advertise for bids for the award of a contract to provide asphalt resurfacing and related repairs upon city streets as detailed in the specifications on file in the Division of Engineering, and further authorizing the mayor, following approval of the Board of Control, to contract for the same with the lowest and best bidder.
Mr. President, I introduce and place on first reading.
Resolution 2022-10. A resolution authorizing the city engineer to advertise for bids for the award of a contract to provide crack sealing on various streets at various locations in the city as detailed in the specifications on file in the Division of Engineering, and authorizing the mayor, following approval of the Board of Control, to contract for the same with the lowest and best bidder.
Mr. President, I introduce and place on first reading.
Resolution 2022-11. A resolution authorizing the city engineer to advertise for bids for the award of a contract to provide new pavement markings to various streets and locations in the city as detailed in the specifications on file in the Division of Engineering, and authorizing the mayor, following approval of the Board of Control, to contract for the same with the lowest and best bidder.
Mr. President,
Mayor.
I introduce and place on first reading.
Ordinance 2022-12. An ordinance amending Chapter 105 of the Administrative Code of the Codified Ordinances of the City of North Olmsted entitled Wards and Boundaries to establish, adopt, and codify the redistricting of the four wards of the City of North Olmsted in response to population figures of the 2020 federal census as proclaimed by the Secretary of State and as required by Article 9, Nominations and Elections, Section 5, General Provisions of the Charter of the City of North Olmsted, and declaring an emergency.
I'd like to introduce and place on first reading on behalf of myself and all of council, and ask for suspension of the rules requiring 3 readings and formal committee review.
Mr. President?
Councilwoman Heeman.
Thank you. I'd like to request suspension of the rules requiring 3 readings for 2022-12. This was discussed numerous times in our caucuses and committee meetings, and I think that it is in the best interest of our residents. And ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to suspend the rules requiring 3 readings and formal committee review made by Councilwoman Heeman, seconded by Councilwoman Williamson. Roll call, please.
Ms. Seaman?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Limpert?
Yes.
Mr. Scarl?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
That motion passes by a vote of 6-0. If there is anyone in the audience who would like to address ordinance 2022-12, please approach the podium now.
Mr. President?
Councilwoman Heeman.
Thank you. Seeing none, I move to adopt 2022-12 and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to adopt ordinance 2022-12 made by Councilwoman Heeman, seconded by Councilwoman Williamson. Roll call, please.
Ms. Seaman?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Scarl?
Yes.
Mr. Limpert?
Yes, with comment. I want to thank some of the fellow council members here for collaborating on this map. I do think there was some room for improvement here, but I think we made changes for the better here in aligning the wards. Thank you.
Ordinance 2022-12 is adopted by a vote of 6-0. Moving into scheduling committee meetings for Tuesday, January 25th, 2022. Councilwoman Williamson, would you like to schedule Public Safety Committee meeting?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to schedule a Public Safety, Health and Welfare Committee meeting at 7:55 PM to discuss liquor permits. 6:55, sorry, 6:55.
Thank you, I thought that was the case.
It was.
Councilman Limpert, would you like to schedule Finance?
Yes, I'd like to schedule finance at 7 o'clock on the 25th to address 2022-8 and ask that the finance director be present.
Thank you. Councilman Kelly, would you like to schedule Streets and Transportation?
Yes, I'd like to schedule the Streets Transportation meeting on the 25th at 7:10 PM for 2022-9, 2022-10, 2022-11. Ask the mayor to be there. And for 10 minutes, please.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gilchrist, would you like to schedule Intergovernmental Relations Committee?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to schedule the Intergovernmental Relations Committee for Tuesday, January 25th at 7:20 PM to consider the mayor's nominee for directors. I would request the mayor and her nominees attend the meeting.
Thank you. And I'm going to call a special council meeting for Tuesday, January 25th, 2022 at 7:50 PM for the sole purpose of considering potential director appointees. Is there a motion on the floor to excuse the absence of Councilman Glassburn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Kelly, seconded by Councilwoman Williamson. Roll call, please.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Mr. Limpert?
Yes.
Mr. Scarl?
Yes.
Ms. Seaman?
Yes.
That motion carries 6-0. With the agenda being completed and there being no further business to come before council, this meeting of January 18th, 2022 is adjourned at 8:24 PM.